Hello and welcome to All 24 News special interviews coming to you from the African Startup Conference from Algiers. Today we are joined by Keith Nair from Digging Deep, who links mining spare parts, consumables and services across Africa. Welcome, Keith.
It's a pleasure, Sama. It's a pleasure.
So to start with, how did you start Digging Deep?
Well, that's a very good question. I'm Zimbabwean born. I studied in South Africa, but was very fortunate enough to be taken by the Zimbabwean government to study in South Africa under the Zimbabwe Presidential Scholarship. So this leapfrogged me into the opportunity to study, but through my studies, I fell in love with mining. Although initially I am a chemist. And Digging Deep came as a result of my experiences in Australia, where I worked for 3 years, and I also worked in the African mining industry for 3 years. And it was born out of the problems I saw, and constantly I wanted a solution for. So that's how Digging Deep was born.
Yeah, so Africa is a rich continent. It is, let's say, a continent that is full of mines of every type and every type.
Yeah.
So how do you see yourselves within this huge amount of mines?
Well, it started off with understanding that mining is about trust, but it's people that runs the mines. So in essence, we started off by gathering data through market research. We started off mainly as a market research company, and in gathering that data, we then understood that mining that's happening in Southern Africa is more or less similar to mining that's happening in West Africa. And we just embraced the challenge and we went for it. Yeah.
So Algeria has just refreshed its laws when it comes to mining, and it's, let's say, hosting several industry events. As Digging Deep, what do you think should Algerian mines be thinking about when it comes to spare parts, when it comes to sourcing? How do you see that?
Well, the most important thing is building an ecosystem of integrating local companies at an MSME level, so medium, small enterprises, but more especially just building an enterprise system that involves communities, because at the end of the day, communities within the vicinity of mining operations also need to participate in the ecosystem of services with the mines. So a local content policy will be very important, especially when it comes to procurement, because that retains the wealth of what's happening in the mining industry within Algeria itself.
From your experience in mining, what is a single day-to-day headache that maybe you have in mines, trying to get parts from another country and maybe providing parts? What is it?
The biggest challenge is logistics. It's very difficult to source parts elsewhere and bring them into the country. So the importance of inventory and ordering in advance, where the communication between the operations team and the procurement team, there needs to be synergy. But also I would like to mention reliability and trust. Mining is really an industry of trust. So that needs to be embedded in the way business is done, especially when it comes to spare parts.
So governments in general keep talking about local content. And how can better supply chains actually create more jobs in the whole continent in general, and maybe if you have an idea about Algeria?
Well, value addition. I am very big on value addition across the whole stream of mining, upstream and downstream. It's very important for us to do value addition, because through value addition we can retain the financial value of the production that's happening in country. And when it gravitates towards employment, the more we build, the more we industrialize, the more we employ, especially in Algeria and in the continent at large.
Yeah, you have raised the point of trust, and also maybe let's call it an issue between two inverted commas of maybe inventing spare parts, locally producing spare parts. Yeah, so when it comes to a point that you have to buy a spare part from a platform like like marketplaces, for example. How far is trust valid when it comes to buying these parts? Does it ever happen to you that maybe you buy a part and it's not really the same as you saw?
Yeah. Well, very good question. The first and most important thing is working with your original equipment manufacturers. And with these original equipment manufacturers, they enable you to have a unique manufacturer part number. And in essence, the trust is embedded in how business is done between the procurement team and the supplier. So majority of it is not necessarily just ordering online. You are also responsible for the safety of what happens on the mines by virtue of the part that you bring in. So in order to build this trust, it's again a relationship. There needs to be a relationship between the supplier and the mine. And this relationship is built on the very principle of honesty. It's built on trust. It's also built on longevity of building a relationship. Mining is about relationships. Doing business as well in mining is about relationships.
Exactly. Yeah. Mining is part of business, of
yes,
the
that's right.
global
Absolutely.
business.
Yeah.
So logistics and customs are messy.
Yeah.
As you are more aware than me about that. What's a practical step that you think governments, maybe countries, startups, entrepreneurs should take, let's say, starting from tomorrow, to make cross-border deliveries easier, faster, and more practical?
The African Free Continental Trade Agreement is one statute that would really help to harmonize the way logistics happens on the continent. If I have a spare part in South Africa, I need to get it to Algeria, it should be easy for me to do it in principle through the African Free Continental Trade Area. But as I am also, not being naive given the challenges that are there, the impetus is on customs authorities to allow the trade and business of spare parts to be much easier, because each spare part has an HS code, and that helps it to move from point A to point B. But mining being the backbone of many of our economies, it's then important to integrate this support service directly into what's valuable for what business to happen on the continent. So it really stems from intentionality, from where the spare parts are coming from to where they are needed, and just embedding everything that happens into the full ecosystem from point A to point B.
Yeah, so give us one quick example of a real moment where better cross-border sourcing cut down time for a mine.
Absolutely. We were dealing with an entity in West Africa, Ghana in particular. They wanted drones and sentry systems for security. In essence, these drones are produced in Nigeria. So previously they had ordered outside Africa, but by virtue of our ecosystem, we managed to cut their downtime by 50% when it came to security, but also in essence, we enabled them to visit the factory in Nigeria before they made the purchase. So that in essence is an example where the technology is there on the continent. It's just the connecting of where there is the demand and where there is the supply, which in essence is what we are doing at DBD.
So we have already said that Africa is a very rich country when it comes to such sources, and also we have talked about supply chains, but we haven't seen, let's say, several startups, entrepreneurs in this field. What do you think this relates to?
Barriers of entry. The biggest fear is always it's too big, and it's also too big an industry where without you understanding how it works, it's very difficult to come in. That's the first barrier. The second barrier could also be the way in which mining is presented globally. Everybody, the moment you tell them that you are in the mining industry, there is a tendency to think it's just about extracting. So I think it goes back to our education systems. Mining needs to be taught from kindergarten so that the kindergarten child gets to primary level, they understand the opportunities that are there in the African mining industry.
So we have reached the end of our interview, but before that, I want you to get to, in brief language, if the African Startup Conference or Algeria as a mining leader, if we can say that, wanted to adopt one recommendation from Digging Deep, what would it be?
Let's integrate more women and youth startups in the mining industry into the ecosystem. We have a lot to offer and we are ready to do business.
Thank you so much, Keith Nair, for sharing your ideas and also your analysis. You have been with me, Usama Ayadi, on a special series of interviews coming to you on the sidelines of the African Startup Conference. Till next time, do take care.